Welcome to Two Balls, One Puck, a brand new sports podcast talking about the Buffalo Bills, Sabres, and the New York Yankees. My name is Tommy Gerasi. This is episode 1 of the podcast. We did episode 0, kind of like an inaugural podcast to get our feet on the ground, but this is actually episode 1. This is for real this time. So let's do some introductions. We'll kick it off to my brother Joey. How you doing, Joey?
I'm good, Tom. Good to be back here again for the official episode 1 of Two Balls, One Puck, talking about the Buffalo Sabres, the Buffalo Bills, and the New York Yankees. Just good to be here with my two brothers in the Media One radio station, and I'm here with Jacob as well. How are you doing tonight, Jake?
Doing well. I encourage anyone listening, if we didn't make it explicitly clear that this is episode 1. We do have a setup episode. We kind of called it episode 0, introducing ourselves, having a little bit of fun. But I would like to take the opportunity to kind of set up the structure going forward. It's going to be normal episodes from here on out. We're going to call them just 1 through however far we go. So this is episode 1. And we're going to be looking at a little bit of a segment for each of our 3 teams that we're talking about in this podcast. So we're going to try to keep our segment's nice and clean.
Yeah, knowing us, we don't know if we can do that, but we'll try.
We'll try our best so that we have our Bills talk, and then we kind of cut it and we say we are now moving to whatever team we go next to, and that's going to keep us kind of in line a little bit. We're known to tangent, and we're known to go off track. So that's the goal, is to try to stay one team at a time. But, Tommy, we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, well, actually, before we start with the Bills, while we're on just introducing, I just got to get something out there. I'm assuming there's a lot of people dealing with this time of year. My allergies are so bad. Do you guys... Actually, Jacob, you mentioned recently that you didn't have allergies until recently, right? And that's what happened to me. I was 22 years old, never was allergic to anything in my life, and then one summer it was just I got hit with a face full of crap. And then now... my eyes felt like 2 flaming meatballs in my skull the other day. I just couldn't.
No one has ever said that.
I couldn't.
Brand new sentence.
I couldn't get them out of under control. It was terrible.
Were you trying to get your eyeballs out?
I mean, I felt like I could have. Honestly, it was so bad. I was just. I don't know. My allergies are so bad. I don't know about you.
There's
guys,
a cool thing called eye drops. Might want to look.
I put eye drops in.
Might want to look into them.
So I don't know if I just got the best genes or luck, but I have yet to, thank you, deal with any type of seasonal allergy, as well as food allergy. I don't think we don't have a lot of food allergies. No. There's 7 kids in our family.
I don't have
food
one.
Allergies. That's awesome.
Medicine.
A couple.
One sister. No.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I got nothing.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, if you're a little sniffy tonight, we know why. It's okay.
To anyone who doesn't have the fortune of not being allergic to things, I apologize for us just rubbing it in your face, but that's the reality as of now.
I offered a kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich the other day, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm deathly allergic to peanut butter," and I was just trying to be nice, so I just want to throw that out there.
That's funny.
Now, but he was actually deathly allergic to peanut butter. Yeah. Well, I mean, because for those who watch The Office, and we're obviously big Office fans, at least Joey and I mean, if anybody knows of the scene later, season 7, it's when Will Ferrell's in the show, and he says he's deathly allergic to peanuts, but he actually just gets a little rash and stuff, and you get nut particles all up in the air.
Classic.
But it could be, but we don't know. With this kid that you offered a PB&J, it could be actually serious.
Well, moving from allergy talk to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. What are they allergic to? Pick one player on the Bills. What are they allergic to?
Oh.
What's one thing that they can't have?
The Buffalo Bills are allergic to winning a Super Bowl.
I
thought
that's what I was getting there, but then I decided to not.
Come on, Tom.
Josh Allen.
Wait. Sorry.
What's he allergic to?
How would they know if they're allergic to it or not if they've never tried it?
Earth-shattering.
So anyways, Ed Oliver, the new, re-signed Buffalo Bill, he is allergic to, I'm making this up on the spot for anyone who thinks I know anything about this man's personal life. I don't. I think he might be allergic to strawberries, and it's difficult because when he goes out to fancy restaurants, he's like, I like fruity desserts.
You think so?
So many desserts are strawberry based. He can't have them.
If you look at his player profile picture, he looks like he's lactose intolerant. He's so big and tough, but it just gets him. Or you know what though? Strawberries might do it. Just a little dainty thing,
there's nothing that hurts this guy. It's just a matter of whether or not.
He orders a 72-ounce steak. but then
72
let's
ounce
hope
steak.
there's
Right, but
nothing
then
that hurts
strawberries.
him during his new contract extension.
Yes,
So
which-
let's,
Stay away from the strawberries, Ed.
stay away from the strawberries. So yeah, Ed Oliver's extension, 4-year deal. I think it is, right? And 4 years, $68 million. And the guaranteed money I think is like $45 million guaranteed. But
So interesting across different sports. We might get into it in the future. Guaranteed versus incentive money based. Different sports have different systems. Just kind of an interesting.
yeah, the NFL is super is unique. I don't know if they're incredibly unique because of the 3 sports we're covering here. I mean, it is to those 3 sports, but with the guaranteed money, you see that all the time. Like when you see a post on ESPN pop up and Patrick Mahomes signed a $16 billion contract with however much guaranteed money. And that's actually really unique to think about that no matter what happens to these guys, because football is so prone to injury and not longevity, that they're guaranteed this money. So yeah, I find that interesting with football, that like money is always guaranteed.
I think for Oliver, at least, as you have to like this contract. You really do. He is a true difference maker when he's on the field. And with all of the injuries the Bills have had, hopefully we can stay away from that. 4 years, it's great. Hopefully going to stick around with the Bills through this, prime time that they have. Super Bowl is in the sight, and it's not far away. We can taste it. So I think Oliver's, it's a great re-signing. Honestly,
I mean, you mentioned being healthy, right? And obviously, was it the season opener last year against the Rams where he was out? He went out with a high ankle sprain, and it took him a while to get back into the rhythm. And I was actually reading up on something pretty interesting about how comparatively in his position, Oliver might hit the numbers that he got in his contract might not stack up value-wise to other defensive linemen in the league. And however, kind of a deeper dive might show that there's more to it than just the numbers on the page. Like the pass rush excelling significantly just with his presence on the field. And I think that sometimes when you have an organization like the Bills have been able to build, that's funny, build over the last few years, where it's this very, very, very structured, Bean has done such a great job. Like they want to pay. They'll pay extra for guys that they know are going to be helping the organization. That are good for the organization, not just, statistics, but on the field, they know that Ed Oliver is going to be a leader. He's going to provide that kind of resiliency, that Bills Mafia type, grit. And I think even though the numbers might not reflect in his salary what his peers are doing in the NFL at his position, the presence on the field is a little bit, you pay a little bit extra for that.
There's guys like that across the league too, that even if the play's not on their half, you're afraid to go towards them. You're trying to avoid. And that makes a big, you might not get credited for the tackle, the sack, or, the forced throw, but, he does definitely make a difference even if the play is not right up to him.
Looking at the Bills' defensive stats with him in the lineup versus out when he's on the field, when he's not on the field, it's kind of amazing. I mean, his personal stats, he has the disadvantage of missing a few games. So he's 13 against a lot of other defensive tackles, 16 or 15 games. So his personal counting stats aren't as shiny, missing the games. But if you take the games where he's not playing and you look at all the Bills defense, what's left, amazing. It's like if my math in my head is correct, we're looking at like a 30% drop, 15, 20, 30%, give or take, percent drop in tackles, in interceptions, in forced throws from the opponent's forced throws, even more downs. The opponents get more downs when he is not on the field. So just like you were saying, even if his personal numbers aren't shining like, the most attractive thing in the world, he really does make a difference to everyone else on the field.
Yeah, his size isn't his weapon, but he disrupts plays enough to where his teammates can succeed more with it too. So that's just another way to point out what's really valuable about this extension for the Bills is the overall benefits that he provides to the team as a whole. I mean, because he makes everybody around him better. Like how Rogue One, a Star Wars story, makes Episode 4 a better movie because it's a great prequel. It makes it a better movie. So he makes everybody around him better.
You have to know, too, that so many players on his team and everyone around him just says what a culture guy he is. And when you're trying to go win a Super Bowl, you want, or any major championship, you don't just need performers. You need a good culture. You need good teammates to have each other's backs that want to play for and with each other. And that's just, I mean, from what everyone's saying, that's what he brings to the table.
That's
how valuable, you can't put a price tag on that sometimes. And, there's players and, in the NFL and other leagues, they might be there and that's their main contribution. They might not be doing as much on the field or on the ice, but they are bringing something to the locker room and the dressing room that is really valuable to the team. So I think all around, cannot complain with this, and looking forward to hopefully a full season from him.
That's a good point, and that was the word that I was looking for when I was talking earlier. When I first started this segment, was the word culture. That was the word I was looking for. It just escaped my brain completely. The Bills have built that culture over the last several years with McDermott and with Bean and bringing, and obviously Allen leading the way here in this new era of Bills football. And the Sabres are really getting there too. Ever since Adams came in, and we'll talk more about the Sabres in a little bit, but culture, that was the word. And we can all relate from, not in a football locker room, but on a personal experience level, we can relate what it's like having a guy in a room, a locker room, obviously hockey being what I'm referencing. Personal experience, we can relate to having a guy in a room who might not be the high-end player. He might not be the most talented guy on the roster, but the intangibles that he brings off the ice and then therefore onto the ice just makes it, it's like an attribute.
I feel like this was an excerpt out of your autobiography.
It is. It's called
Careful.
Careful. Yeah. That's a good point, Jacob.
Yeah.
I can't say.
I won't go there yet.
It's called Tommy Girassi TBD.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, no, can't be upset about that. And then another really exciting thing for the Bills, obviously, kind of the biggest news from the draft. Kincaid is exciting.
Moving on.
Is exciting.
Here we
you
go.
have to be excited. And people,
I'm pumped for Kincaid. I really am.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And you can't, we as Bills fans, but the whole league, terrorized by the Gronkowski and the Kelseys, the big tight ends that are powerful, the yards after reception.
Nightmares.
This is what Kincaid does best. He might not beat you, flat out. He's not going to, run the routes that Diggs runs and be, 60 yards downfield, just blowing by guys. But if we can have a player like a Gronk or like a Kelsey that we know when he gets the balls, he's squeezing 2-3 yards out, paired up with Knox, if he is what they say he's going to be, we could have one of the most lethal 1-2 punches for tight ends across the whole league.
Speaking of kind of going off of what they say in quotes for anyone who's not watching us but listening, I just put up air quotes, they say. I am now quoting or reading excerpts from the Draft Network. So this is kind of a report on Kincaid's, when he was drafted, when he was, I think this was before he was drafted, but his report. But some of these quotes, they try to fluff up all of these draft prospects. That's the goal. But you look through some of these things that they're saying about him, and some of these quotes. Sure-handed receiver pops out. Explosive movements, strength larger than his size. All these things that just kind of make you excited to see it on the field. And I'm looking at the Bills' tight end stats, and
from last year,
from 2022. Obviously, Knox.
Yep,
outstanding.
Sweeney had some big games.
Decent quarterback from passing to you, though. That makes a big
It does help.
difference.
Doesn't hurt.
But what I'm looking at is, so one question is going to be, are the Bills going to put out 1-2 tight ends? What are they going to put out at a time? And also, what are they going to put out 2 that have the same play style? Because Kincaid, as a prospect, obviously college is different. He played at Utah. It's a different conversation. But his yards, his receives per yard, it's outstanding. And it's not the NFL. We know this. It doesn't translate 1-to-1. But clearly his style of play is that of closer to a receiver than almost anything. He really likes to have the ball. And the question is, are the Bills going to put out 2 tight ends who want the ball, or they might kind of match one?
Well, yes. That's a really good point. And actually, so The Bills last year, if I read this correctly, if I remember correctly, the Bills last year were, I mean, this isn't really something to be ranked last, and I mean, technically they were, but they did not align 12 personnel, quote unquote. There's your air quotes right there, Jacob. 12 personnel alignments last year with 2 tight ends on the field. The Bills did not do that last year. Now, Josh Allen has admitted recently that he's going to dial back his running game pretty soon. I mean, and we expected that to happen because Allen's not going to be 26 forever, and his body's not going to be able to take it forever. As awesome as he is, those incredible leaps, hurdles
Stiff
that we
arms,
see,
taking
we're not going to
hits,
see it forever. Although, can you just premonition down the line, like a Super Bowl game and Josh Allen's like 37 years old, and here comes old man Allen, and he just hurdles the guy, breaks his leg doing it, but he goes into the end zone and he wins the Super Bowl.
You saw this with every big quarterback, and Big Ben, dude,
Big Ben.
Beginning of his career, he did a lot of Allen-like things. He was lower in the shoulder. He was going for 20, 30-yard runs. He was taking hits, hurdling guys, stiff arms.
But he had to change.
It happens to every quarterback. Yeah. So obviously, there were times that we'd be watching a game and look at each other, and we see all these, we got Gabe Davis, we've got Allen, Knox, Davis, and we have Diggs.
We have Knox too. He's
Knox,
there. He exists.
And Allen, just kind of going for the 2-yard run, and we're like, okay, we've got all of this talent, and sometimes we don't see all of the throw and pass plays that we want. So I mean, him running, obviously, it's a skill he's not going to just go away overnight.
Yeah.
But with Kincaid and maybe just a little bit of offensive change in the design, the play call. Allen's got one of the best arms in the league. Let's use the run. And honestly, you can compare it to Mahomes. Mahomes has kind of mastered that. He is a pass-first guy unless, he sees the run quick and he'll do that. But, I think Allen needs to just be a little bit more patient in the pocket. And hopefully with guys like Kincaid, and maybe some different play calls, he can use that absolute cannon that he has a little bit more than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, good point. And to go back just to wrap up where I started with this and how we got here is that with Allen maybe running a little less in the future. I mean, I'm not saying that Josh Allen's
he's
not
27.
I know.
Give it a few years.
I know, but I mean, bodies deteriorate quick in the NFL. Quarterbacks, I mean, and the Bills know, and Allen knows that his arm is just as valuable as his legs, especially going down the line as he gets to be a smarter
don't play
QB.
like that though. Like
I know,
almost don't play like that.
And let's remember, the Bills traded up to get Kincaid. They traded up in the draft to get him. He was their guy. He was probably considered to be the best tight end in the draft. They got their guy. So are we going to see more 2 tight end, 12 personnel alignments this year with Knox and Kincaid out there so Allen can have more weapons out there? Because after Diggs and Davis, there is a legitimate conversation about if Allen has enough weapons out on the field. And I mean, Docs. What's the thing where you switch the letters? Dawson.
There's a term for
Dawson Knox.
Dawson.
Yeah,
Knox.
I know what you mean.
Anyway, does he have enough weapons right now with Knox, with Diggs, with Davis?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Larry Fitzgerald. What's he doing? Is he retired now?
Is T.O. still playing?
T.O. could still play.
He can still kick it.
T.O. he posts regularly on his Facebook like a Snapchat of him like shredded on a beach somewhere. He could play.
He's jacked.
Jerry Rice could play.
Well, you have to be excited about Kincaid. And I know, like Jacob said, it's a different game in college, but, they're still incredible athletes. They're strong. And he was breaking some tackles. He had 2-3 guys. The one clip, he looked like Jerome Bettis. He literally had a guy on his back, and he was running and trying to get tackled. So if they can bring a little bit of that tough, extra couple yards after carry, that could be a big, big addition to the offense. So a lot to be excited about from him.
Well, I think the where we're at right now is we talked about those 2, one defensive, one more offensive players, but going forward with our Bills talk, maybe our next episode or in coming weeks, we will be deep diving into each of our positions and I don't know about every position, but more of the offense versus defense type thing. And the conversation of offensive weapons, we will get into it. It's a good conversation because the style of play that the Bills put on the field feels like their scores, their just general runs scored, could have been higher based on the way that they try to play. So the question is, do they play with a style that isn't conducive to the number of, to use the term that we've been using, offensive weapons. And it's an interesting look to look at these scores and say they're trying to play maybe like a team that should be scoring more than they're scoring.
Does Dawson Knox like when he first like sees Kincaid? Oh, have they seen each other yet?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Do you think that he like gave him a fist bump?
Or do you think he went like, I was going to say chest to chest. He's like, I'm the guy here. Like, you're not the guy yet.
100%.
Do
So
you
he
think he
goes
just
for
went,
the
like,
dap up. He
right
goes
here?
for the dap up. He pulls him real close. And he says,
and he
hey,
goes,
hey, I'm tight end one, okay? I'm tight end one.
You can be tight end too.
You can be tight end
You
two.
can be TE too.
Also.
It's
TOO.
like when you have little brothers right here, and you're playing a video game, and you tell them that the controller's plugged in, but it's not really plugged in.
That's mean.
You know
I
what
mean,
oh yeah, you did so
this is a
good,
number one
Jakey.
draft pick. I'm talking more that you turn the bots he's playing against, you turn them to easy. That might be what it was. Knox is like,
Well,
listen, like, look at I played this game. I'm the guy. You're still here, but
I just envision a huge chest bump, just
That
right out of the gate.
could have been.
But at the same time,
Who has the bigger chest?
Who has the bigger chest? Knox. I want Kincaid to push Knox because that's a good thing.
100%.
That is a great thing.
100%.
And just to touch on the controller being unplugged thing, obviously you guys didn't, but I did beat the absolute crap out of you guys in Chell for most of the time growing up. Jacob especially. Joey, you finally gave me some competition near the end there. Before I moved out.
Congratulations for taking advantage of your younger brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were
Xbox.
developing
that.
like our brain function, and you were scoring goals and telling us that we were like useless or worthless because we weren't fighting back. It was a tough time to be me.
I hope you're proud of yourself, Don.
When I say Chell, I mean the NHL video games, and actually Jacob and I, especially Joey, sometimes we still play this game called NHL Hits. For those who have never played it,
Or heard of it.
If you like, I don't care if you like hockey or not. Go get a very old system that came out before around the time Jacob was born, and play NHL Hits, and you won't be disappointed. But
especially 2003. So I would like to transition us if that's okay.
not quite the one. If we're gonna go from football, leaving football.
Well, yeah, we should start to talk about a hockey video game. So
Yes, we did, and that would have been a great transition, and I just botched it. That would have been
you
so
left it
good.
hanging.
The last thing, though, we do have to mention with the Bills is just so everybody's aware, for those who don't keep track all the time of news and stuff going on, OTAs, or as they're known, which are organized team activities, just finished up on Thursday.
Feels more like a summer camp than a sports team.
Yeah. So it's a voluntary program that NFL teams run, that guys, like there's a rookie camp, and like Stephon Diggs wasn't at any of them, which was to be expected, to be honest with you. But coming up on the 13th, so that's Wednesday. Yeah, 13th through the 15th, the Bills have a mandatory minicamp coming up. So we're going to get to see some looks
Tuesday.
there. It's Tuesday?
Today's
Whatever.
11th. It's Sunday.
Oh, that makes sense. My wife's birthday's on the 15th, which I know is Thursday, so I should have dated that.
Should have gone back too.
Hopefully she doesn't
Spoonerism.
Hopefully I don't forget
listen
that.
to this part.
But
So,
Spoonerism.
anyway, more discussion in our next episode. We'll probably dive into some storylines, what to watch for in that mandatory minicamp. So,
Spoonerism
what's spoonerism?
is a slip of the tongue wherein you swap the first sounds, generally initial consonants, of two or more words to create a new word or words all together.
Knocks and docks?
Knocks and docks. Careful when you mix up words. Sometimes things sound explicit when they do not mean to be. So, but it can be funny. That could be a segment. I give you a player and we switch names and we try to make maybe like new players.
My favorite wide receiver in the Buffalo Bills is Stephon Diggs.
he's got wheels.
Would that be it? That would be the, what's it,
Stephon
spoonism?
Diggs. Yeah, spoonerism.
Well, yeah,
okay.
so
Spoonerism.
Anyway.
definitely more Bills talk to come. I
Yeah.
mean, quiet times and hot times, big news might pop up, but, for the next little bit, we're
Allen.
just going to Allen. Keep a
All
look
right.
at it. But
So we did have, yes, Bills episode 2, more talk on the Bills, obviously. But now let's transition, because this is 2 balls, 1 puck, and we're going to sandwich the puck in between the 2 balls tonight, and we're going to move on to some hockey talk. Buffalo Sabres. What is going on with the Sabres? Not a whole lot.
If we're being real.
Yes,
Yes
being
and no.
real.
Yes and no.
But you can make a lot out of nothing, to be honest with you. But there is not nothing. But we did say in episode 0, like with the Sabres specifically, they're in this little bit of a slow time, and then things are really going to heat up at the end of this month and into early July with free agency, with the draft first and then free agency, and then obviously like trade market's going to open wide up. So there are some topics to discuss.
Although the Sabres are in the slow time, the off season. Honestly, when's the last time that you've actually been excited and really keen on watching what the Sabres are doing in the offseason, from prospects to draft to training camp to, their AHL players and how they performed in playoffs? So while the Sabres are in the offseason, and especially once the Stanley Cup Finals wrap up in the next couple of days and we go through the awards and everything, it's going to get quiet, but I'm so excited to actually pay attention and, really be focused on the Sabres offseason because it means something. Not that it didn't last year, but after the year that they had, missing playoffs by one win that they could have had against Columbus or Montreal, or
Alex
talk about that.
In Florida.
There's a lot to be excited about. And honestly, it's really cool. We've seen some amazing play for some young guys, some of it in the NHL and some of it in the AHL. But, we have to touch on that, big thing coming up, development camp. It's at the Harbor Center, which is a super cool place right outside of the Sabres KeyBank Arena. And so, the roster's not out yet. There's a lot of players we can look for, though. We saw a couple of them up in the NHL, like we mentioned, too. And, there's a lot to be excited about, Tom. So who are some of the guys? There's a couple big names, last year's draft, AHL players. There's some exciting talent in Rochester right now to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, Rochester. Which, by the way, nobody... not nobody, but you might not keep track of the Rochester Americans, which is the Sabres AHL minor league affiliate, but they made a run this year in the Calder Cup playoffs. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals and bowed out to the Hershey Bears, who, I don't know why, but Hershey always seems like they have a terrific program. But it's really cool to see the Sabres minor league team get that far because it shows that we've got some good stuff in the cupboard. Like, it's looking good.
And the young guys were pitching in too. It's not like they were just along for the ride.
It's like it's the like dustiest thing to do, but of all time. But has a team ever just like right before the AHL playoffs just loaded up and signed a bunch of vets like that were out of it? Just like maybe that wouldn't actually work, but
probably not. It's a different league.
It'd be funny.
Okay. If I may,
37-year-old average age for your minor league team.
I am not going to say the name of the team because I know that I don't know it exactly, and I don't want it to be wrong. But I know for sure that if I had to guess, I would say 2017 because that's when I was in high school, so 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that range. I'm dating myself here. A team got in trouble. I'll look it up after.
You got in trouble when you were 18?
No, an NHL team got in trouble for taking
what did you do, Jacob?
6 or 7 of their active young players and just saying, go win the Calder Cup.
Oh, I actually kind of remember that.
And they did not win. They lost in the finals, but they got in trouble because they took their roster, basically forfeited their last 3 or 4 or 5 regular season games and said, go try to win this AHL
must have been kind of cool. I mean, obviously the NHL lockout was not fun for NHL fans or players, but you had some genuine superstars playing in the AHL and the ECHL. So, if you've got a local ECHL or AHL team that's around you and you can go and see the NHL superstar, the 50 goal scorer from the NHL is coming to play. Can you imagine being that AHLer that, just cracked the lineup and now you've got a full-fledged all-star team against you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, anyway. Rochester, a lot to talk about. Yuri Kulich. So, there's a lot. And
now you mentioned at the top here the development camp, which was just recently announced. And for those who don't know what development camp is, it's essentially rookie training camp for a chance for all the Sabres prospects to work out with their training staff, with some of the coaches and stuff like that. And it's free to the public. Anybody who's in the Buffalo area or here in the Southern Tier, Jamestown, wherever it is, if you want to take that short hour and 15-minute drive up to the Harbor Center, which is right next to KeyBank Center, and watch the Sabres prospects play and practice and develop, it's super cool to watch. It's July 2nd through the 6th. That's at Harbor Center. And I know at the last day, which is a Sunday, July 6th, they do a little 3-on-3 tournament competition with each other, and it's really, really cool. But yeah, so that's what's new in the news with the Sabres. Obviously, That camp will include, like Joey just said, a lot of prospects that we know about, a couple that we've seen already in Buffalo, but it will also include the prospects of the Sabres draft at the upcoming draft at the end of the month, and which is in, where's the draft this year? Montreal, something like that. I have to look that up. But anyway, some of the names that Joey might have mentioned really quick. It's in Nashville. Montreal must have been last year or something. Then I don't know.
Couldn't have been more wrong.
I could have been more wrong.
Not much.
Okay. Well, anyway, names like that might not stand out to people that are listening, but that names that you'll probably want to make yourself familiar with, and that we're going to make you familiar with right now. Yuri Kulich, who absolutely was a beast in the AHL this year, tore it up. And he was a Sabres draft pick last year, 2022 pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Sabres first round pick last year, Matt Savoy, is another big one to look at, and he actually fell to the Sabres from last year. In last year's draft, the Sabres took him first with their first pick, and he actually, in what would be considered in the North American rankings, he fell down to the Sabres, and I thought it was a fantastic pick. He was supposed to go like top 5. He could have even slipped up maybe top 3 last year. Last year's draft wasn't super deep, but Kulich, Savoy, Lucas Rausick, who
we saw a couple times.
We saw a couple games.
Yep. Scored on his first NHL shift.
Yes, he did. It was really cool. He actually, so he's got his taste of NHL action. So
you'll also see some of the young Sabres that we saw more regularly. They still will participate in that camp.
Like
so
who,
some
Joey?
Of the young
Tell me
guys.
about some of those guys that are young.
Honestly, you have to think even Peyton Krebs. Krebs was there last year, and even though he played another, he's still very young.
Qualify as a prospect still? Is he going to be at the
He's still on his
camp?
entry level. So I mean, you got to think that that's who can qualify. For the developmental camp. So. There's still, you might see that, and you know who might be there as well, Tom?
Thompson shows up and he just absolutely terrorizes everybody and says, okay, you guys are not even close.
Straight out of college, tendy between the pipes.
Ooh.
I mean, he's going to be he's the Sabres' number one. Yes, he played the entire rest of the year with us. And
Levi, some more on him in a little bit.
Just a couple other things, about the Amherst. Honestly, like you said, a great run. Maybe didn't get the attention that it deserves, but they came back from a couple of series deficits, came back from a couple of game deficits, and had a great run. And something that's a little bit of a sour note or unfortunate, Lawrence Pilot, we saw him a couple of times in the last few years with the Sabres. Small, quick, puck-moving defenseman. He was incredible for the Amherst, especially in playoffs.
For the Amherst, yeah.
For the Amherst. He had his moments within Buffalo. He saw some promise, but he signed a professional contract in Switzerland, so for the time being, he's kind of out of the question.
Yeah, I'm not, to be totally honest, and this is just my opinion, I'm not sad to see Pilot go. He at his best, he provided a seventh defenseman for the Sabres. At his best, he was... really, he never cracked to be a top 6 defenseman.
No, but you have to think he's almost an identical game to Jacob Bryson, but I think brings a little bit more talent. So, you have to think, obviously he's not what the Sabres need. The Sabres and their D-core, they're looking a different direction. They need a little bit more stability, some size. Look at the Stanley Cup Finals right now. Mm-hmm. Vegas Golden Knights' smallest defenseman is Alex Martinez. He's what, 6'2"?
The Golden Knights are just a wagon.
Incredible.
I can't get
so
into
Sabres,
that right now,
we don't need another 5'7", defenseman. They need some strength and size back there.
I wish Pilot
Yeah,
flying over because his last name is Pilot.
Do you think he's got a pilot's license?
No, not even spelled like close.
No, it's not.
It's got like one or two similar.
Yeah, I know.
Like if you have a last name like that, like do you have to just follow it? Like no matter if your last name is like Strawberry.
There's a term for that.
At Oliver's allergic to strawberries.
1 second.
So staying along the lines of the Sabres and looking ahead, NHL draft combine.
Yeah, we actually
just transpired.
We should have actually probably started with that instead of the development camp because it would have led into it better.
It's okay. It's good to know that it's good to know what the Sabres might be looking for this year in the draft. So Tom, tell us a little bit. Who the Sabres look at, who they talk to in the combine, because there's a lot of talent in this draft pool. Obviously, Connor Bedard has swept all of the talks, and don't think he's gonna fall to the Sabres in this draft. So who do you think the Sabres might have their eyes on? Who they talk to this year, Tom?
Thank you, Joey.
You're welcome.
But if Bedard fell to the Sabres, which 12 other teams would have to have amnesia.
Or be held at gunpoint,
If
potentially.
you can get 12 GMs in a room and Men in Black them, and it wipes them, that's like my third pop culture reference so far in this episode. But if you could do
You're
that,
limited to 5.
and then
I was gonna say
the
4.
Blackhawks have the first pick, and the GM sitting there, and he's like, I forgot who I was going to take, and the scouts are like, we're taking Bedard. He's like, but I don't have that. I don't have that on my sheet yet. I don't have that on my sheet.
Kevin Adams is just sitting behind him like this. Just
It's Connor Bedard. We're taking Bedard, and then Gary Bettman's like, the clock is ticking. He's looking at him, and it's gone to the last 10 seconds, but they don't have the power, and the owner's not there. Because the owners don't go to the draft, so he's not there, so he doesn't have the power. So the GM just forgets, and then it just happens 12 more times. 11 more times.
Yeah.
And Kevin Adams is like,
I'd say the odds on that, if I was a
Bedard.
betting man, I probably wouldn't
50-50.
bet on that. So,
right,
the draft is coming up. Sabres, they've got a lot of young talent, but they still have some holes to fill, and you got to look ahead. If the Sabres are going to be a good team and compete in the NHL, we're not looking at this year alone or next year. We've got to look ahead. So, what do you think, Tom? Who they talk to first,
Okay.
and then what do you think that they need compared to who they are looking at?
So, yeah, in all serious now here, away from the Men in Black stuff. Something also really cool, the NHL Combine happened in Buffalo, and it's actually been held in Buffalo numerous times, and it's actually become the NHL's premier destination to hold the Combine because the Harbor Center is such an incredible complex. And
Amazing facility.
And so what the NHL Combine is, for those who aren't familiar, like I mentioned with the development camp, is it's for rookies. For the Sabres, on the specifically Sabres prospects that come to training camp, the NHL Combine is a chance for, if you're familiar with did I say NFL? I meant to say NHL if I said NFL, but anyway, it's basically the exact same thing as the NFL. The prospects for the upcoming draft attend. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary, and they work out in front of the scouts. Like, for example, Connor Bedard, who's the number 1 rated prospect in this year's NHL draft.
And in the NHL draft since McDavid.
Yeah, he's getting comparisons to Connor McDavid and, that level of hype. For example, you do pull-ups and you run sprints and you do all the basic workouts to show the scouts what you really can do just on a physical level. And so that's all the Combine is. It's not anything on ice or anything like that. But anyway, and it also provides teams a chance to talk to these prospects in advance before they draft them. Because, let's be real, at this level, at the professional level, you're not just drafting a guy based on his stat sheet. We talked about this earlier with Ed Oliver with the Bills. You're drafting, especially with the Sabres, you're drafting somebody who you envision being a part of your team, succeeding on your team for a long time. Now, that doesn't always happen. It actually rarely does if a draft pick becomes a lifelong player on your team or even a significant piece of your team. I mean, not all of them pan out. Most of them don't. However, the Combine allows teams to talk to prospects early to get to know who they are on a personal level. The vibe that they're going to give in the locker room, what kind of personality they have, what do they order when they go to McDonald's, that kind of stuff, because that's very important.
Something interesting to note, though, is out of the players that the Sabres said they talked to, 6 prospects that they noted, majority of them are wingers. So looking at the Sabres roster, it is interesting. So, I mean, obviously, you can be one way or another with the Sabres goaltending in the future. Obviously, with Levi, Levi. With Levi here, we have to be excited. He's incredible. People are up and down about UPL. Eric Comrie's still a youngish goalie that, has had some great numbers. Yeah. But it's still interesting to see that, if you had to pick one position the Sabres were deepest at from their NHL team into the minors and their prospects, even their prospects overseas, wingers kind of their strength if they have any. So it's interesting to see that they talked to the majority of wingers and only 2 defensemen in that Combine.
It was reported that the Sabres talked to 6 prospects at the Combine, and 4 are wingers, 2 are defensemen. For those who are not familiar with how the draft rankings go, so every single year the NHL has what they call their NHL Central Scouting rankings, and at multiple points in the year, these players that are eligible in the upcoming draft are ranked based on North American skaters and then North American goalies and European skaters and European goalies. That's the official way that the NHL does it. So your sites, your outside sites are going to rank them all together. But the Sabres know that they're picking 13th in the first round this year. And I don't envision the Sabres trading up in the draft. And the reason I say that, unless they really like one of these wingers, and I'm going to talk about a couple of these. And we're not going to do a deep dive into these guys. We're going to dive.
That can be a fun future segment.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob.
But
who's just been picking his nose this whole time. He hasn't talked in.
Well, I've got so many fun things to say. But...
I know, but we like to talk.
I think that, it's good. Obviously, Sabres and their young guys, it's a topic. I think that we have plenty of time in the offseason if we want to get into that. So I think that, a couple of things to look at for the Sabres now, too. One thing that I, heard and I read from many sources, apparently, is that a lot of agents across the NHL have reported that the players they represent have removed the Sabres off of their no trade or no move clause list. So, when an NHL player signs a contract, they have the power, depending on the player and their contract, to have a list of teams that they decide they do not want to go to be traded to, no matter what. And so Sabres, for obvious reasons, were on a lot of players' lists. They didn't want to be traded. So now, seeing a lot of these players remove their no trade clause from the Sabres, you have to think that it's not just Buffalo fans. The whole league is getting a sense that the Sabres are moving in the right direction. So that's a really cool topic. And to think about the Sabres and going in the right direction, two of the most important names that we need to talk about, and hoping that, we can get things settled, Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, and, what their offseason looks like for them.
Yeah, good transition to wrap up the combine stuff before we start getting into that next topic. And then this is probably where we're going to curb our Sabres talk for this episode, is where we're about to go with, these extension rumors and whatnot. And just to finish on the combine thing, I mentioned that we're going to do a deeper dive. Jacob said that potentially a good future episode, which it is. We'll go into a full, much deeper dive into a preview of the Sabres draft, their needs, some of the prospects that they're eyeing, who might be a good fit. But the Sabres are picking 13th, like I said, and I don't think that they're going to move up. It's possible, but the guys that they're looking at, I talked about how the central scouting works in the NHL. And so the guys that the Sabres are talking to are about there in their respective categories, around where they're projected to go in those rankings. Like, for example, the Sabres talked to a prospect named Matthew Wood, who is ranked 4th on the North American skaters list. That doesn't mean that he might be ranked 4th with the European skaters as well. He'd probably be a little further down. But he's ranked higher than 13 overall, most likely. Mm-hmm. And the Sabres feel that they might be able to grab him. So, and then they've talked to a couple other guys, and again, that are around that area, and we'll go into this more later, a couple of defensemen and other wingers that are in that relative vicinity. Mm-hmm. So the Sabres don't envision, because this is a deep draft coming up, they don't envision guys falling to them, I don't think. And I don't think that they're going to trade up. But more to talk about that later.
Definitely.
Later episode. Yeah.
So I have to just talk about Rasmus Dahlin.
Let's get into the Dahlin and
there's
Power
talks,
stuff.
There's projected contract extensions.
Yeah.
And I honestly just think that the Sabres, in reason, obviously, should throw the bag at Dahlin. He is potentially underrated across the whole league. Just simply, if you don't watch him day in and day out, obviously his offensive talent, we've seen that from when he was playing World Juniors before he even got drafted by the Sabres. Mm-hmm. He can skate, his stick handling, incredible, passing, incredible. But what he brings to the Sabres, a lot of people, if you're not watching him day in and day out, they don't see, but he has become, especially this past season, a great defenseman, not a skilled defenseman. We see Erik Karlsson, on the San Jose Sharks playing forward from the defensive position. Dahlin makes a difference when he's on the ice in all 3 zones. Mm-hmm. He is so valuable. If you want the Sabres to be a competitive team in the next couple of years with this core group that they've built, and Adams has done such a great job building this core and creating this culture, and Granato's been incredible at the helm, you have to think Dahlin needs to be there these next couple of years if we're going to want to sniff the playoffs and further into playoffs.
Yeah, here's Dahlin we're talking about. We'll a little bit on Power as well, but he is the bigger topic, especially as we look to move from the Sabres to the Yankees. But the point on Dahlin is just looking at some of his advanced stats. So his counting stats, anyone you can look these up. They're very available. His points, his even like block shots, time on ice. But some of his advanced defensive stats are just so much better than they've been in years past. And his offensive stats have never been a question. It's never been, is he going to be a two-way defenseman? He was so offensive that it's becoming this two-way conversation now, which is the conversation we want to have, is this two-way defenseman and his defensive stats. So just as an example, he has there's a stat called DZS. It's defensive zone start percentage, that when plays start in the defensive zone, Dahlin has a successful defensive zone play 45% of the time, which ranks in the top 15 defensemen in the Eastern Conference, which, you give one defenseman to a team, and that means if you lay it out that way,
he's the best.
That means Dahlin is one of the best defensive defensemen, not only on the team, but he's better than almost every defensive defenseman in the conference, and that is
Jake. What constitutes a successul defenseman?
So a blocked shot, a intercepted pass, a stick lift, an interfered skating lane, not interference like the penalty, but getting in the way, or a cleared puck. So 45% of the time that Dahlin is on the ice, he
in a
is
defensive zone face-off.
Not even a face-off,
just a
play
play.
in the defensive zone.
Okay, gotcha.
So I mean, I'm sure you could butter knife
good
stats
stat,
however you
Jake.
wanted to. That's an awesome stat. But even just from watching him, just from the eye test, Dahlin looked so much more comfortable. When he was on the ice, he was breaking up plays. He was lifting sticks, moving bodies out in front. And we saw a chippiness from Dahlin that we haven't seen in years past. He was getting in the scrums, mixing it up, standing up for his goalie and his teammates around him. And if you want a franchise defenseman, in the NHL right now, yes, it's moving away from the physical and the fighting, but you need a guy that can stand his ground out there. You really do. And Dahlin is really stepped into that two-way role this year, and hopefully he can keep leaning into great offensive stats, but also a guy that we can put in the zone on a penalty kill, last minute of the game. We don't want a fifth forward on the back end. Dahlin has really stepped up his D play. So, Tom, what do you think on Dahlin? What do you think? There's rumors, there's some stuff out there of what the contract's going to look like.
Sure.
In your opinion, what do you think Dahlin's contract should look like? You're Kevin Adams. You're the GM. What do you think a fair, good, reasonable, and also good offer for him and for the Sabres? What does that look like? What do you think?
Okay, so that's a great question. The rumors right now out there are actually the most recent report is that the Sabres have a deal in place for Dahlin already, and they're just waiting for July 1 to pull the trigger because that's when they can. And just for some clarification really quick, Dahlin is not a free agent at the end this summer. He still has one more year on his contract. And the Sabres have, they'll have a full basically calendar year, so to speak, to extend Dahlin. So he doesn't ever hit free agency, so other teams have a chance to pursue him. If you look around the league and you look at comparatively the numbers that Dahlin has put up, before Dahlin got injured last year, he was on keeping pace with Erik Karlsson offensively. Points production-wise, excuse me, I keep having these little hiccups. I don't know what's happening. Can't be the allergy thing. But anyway, Dahlin was keeping pace with Erik Karlsson on the San Jose Sharks, who ended up winning the Norris Trophy, which is for the most valuable defenseman, or the best defenseman in the league. And Erik Karlsson's making $11.5 million a year. Cale Makar, for those not familiar, probably one of the most talented hockey players on planet Earth right now, is carrying a cap hit of $9 million. And now Makar is going to become a free agent again soon. Not soon. I shouldn't say soon. But in his prime, when he's still in his prime, he's going to become a free agent again, and he's going to make a lot of money. So what does Dahlin's contract look like? That's the question. What should it look like? The reports are an 8-year, $10 million per. Those are the reports that Kevin Adams is going to lock him up on July 1, Rasmus Dahlin, and they can sign him for a maximum of 8 years, being the team that controls his rights, just for Yankees lost. For more on that later. For people who don't know, if you are an NHL team and you pursue a free agent that's not on your team, you can sign them for a maximum of 7 years. So anyway, the report is 8 years, 10 per. Personally, if that was the deal, I would absolutely eat that up. I'd eat that up. $10 million 5 years from now, for if he's producing at the same caliber, is going to be a steal. It's going to be a steal. And the Sabres so far, Kevin Adams has done a tremendous job locking up some guys.
Tage Thompson,
yes.
Dylan Cousins,
Tage Thompson's
the future.
$7.6 million cap hit right now is already possibly the biggest steal in the NHL already, and we're 1 year into his contract. Cousins hasn't gotten there yet to show that it's gonna be worth it. Mm-hmm. But if Adams can get Dahlin on $10 million a year, he absolutely should pull the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another, we could talk about this again. There's a long offseason for the Sabres yet to come, and what we can talk about there. The things that they can do. A lot of young talent, another, topic for the future. Owen Power, looking at him, he had a good year, ranked really high among rookies in general, especially rookie defensemen, offensively and defensively, had some great statistics as well. So, speaking of young talent, I think this is a great time.
It's a great transition.
To transition
by
this
half a second.
into the young talent that there's a lot to talk about. Going away from the Buffalo Sabres to the New York Yankees, and especially the reason I'm transitioning here, Anthony Volpe just pinch hit in the bottom of the 10th inning with a runner on third and struck out on 3 pitches to end the game and a series loss to the Boston Red Sox. So let's get right into it.
Nominative determinism is the term when it's called, it means name-driven outcome. It is when you're named something and then you continue on in life as continuing that career path. If you were to be named Darryl Strawberry instead of being a superstar MLB outfielder, you would be a strawberry farmer. So that is nominative determinism.
So Lawrence Pilot does not qualify.
Not a pilot, but Anthony Volpe could be named, now this is a hot take, could be named Anthony something not so encouraging in the first 2.5 months of the season. It's a real conversation. Volpe has been a very below average defensive and offensive shortstop. He's young. I am not out on Volpe as a player, as a superstar in the future, potentially. That's a big term. But definitely as a contributor, I'm not out on it. But as of right now, the Yankees have won 2 of their last 6 games against the White and Red Sox combined, 2 below 500 teams. The Yankees look like a shell of a playoff team without Aaron Judge, and we can start with the Volpe conversation if you'd like. It's a real conversation.
It is, and the Yanks. We still have to remember. I'm going to say 2 things that we need to keep in perspective. One, when we talk about Volpe, I don't think any of us are down and out on him. No. I don't think that anyone in Yankees Nation is down and out on Anthony
There's
Volpe.
some crazies in Yankees Nation.
Sure, but there's probably crazies out there that are down and out on Aaron Judge. So,
well, he's a wimp. He has no toes.
He has 10. One's just hurt.
He has 9
story
toes.
of his big toe, though.
2 things to keep in mind. One, the 3 of us, along with, I'd say, the majority of Yankees fans, were so excited and watching training camp like they never have before.
Elated.
Waiting for the lineups to come out. Yeah. And were just absolutely ecstatic when Volpe made the opening day lineup. Let's keep that in mind as we think about his current struggles. And also, number 2, yes, Yankees dropping 2 of their last 6 games against the White Sox and Red Sox.
Winning 2, dropping 4.
Dropping 4. If you put them in the AL Central, they have a commanding lead.
But I have bad news. They are not in the AL Central.
Understood.
And they will never be.
So, Yankees have not had a truly healthy lineup, and really far from it, considering the injuries to their pitchers all season long. Yes, bad times. We just got done with a pretty great month, a couple of great stretches, some huge series wins against really good teams. So, Aaron Judge out of the lineup for who knows how long. Volpe struggling. There's a lot of things that we can be scared about, but we have to understand the Yankees aren't in a terrible place. Yes, the Rays are running away with the division again. The Blue Jays are playing some incredible baseball, and the Orioles, are still right there ahead of everyone else.
But
so we have to remember the Yankees aren't in a miserable place. It's not like they just dropped below 500.
See, I'm gonna have to disagree in that. I'm not saying that they are out of anything, not even the division, as they fall 9.5 games behind today. Not saying they're out of it, but I would say that they are in as close to as a miserable place right now than they have been, and that then hopefully they will be in the future. I'm not saying they're out. I'm saying right now it is not pretty. We have starting pitching from the people we didn't expect it, which is good, but I'm the biggest Garrett Cole supporter of all time, one of them. His May was not pretty. Nestor Cortez on the injured list. We have Luis Severino, who was supposed to be this huge welcome back Severino. 3 bad starts in a row. So we're not out of this. This conversation is not the Yankees are out of anything. It is very real that they are not in the spot that you want them to be, except for their bullpen, which we will get to in a minute. But offensively, and a lot of starting pitching performances have been that of a below championship caliber team, which they've been for now 14 years, and it's too long. It's just it's not what they want to
There's so much that we could unpack here about the Yankees, and I think that we are going to have plenty of time to dive into a lot of this stuff. We have, as we talked about, Sabres, Bills season, not too much going on. There's going to be stuff to talk about. We have a lot of Yankees talk ahead of us. There's full-fledged in the season. So I think that, at least for tonight, we need to just kind of stay away from the injury stuff, because we know injuries affect the team. They're going to affect the team. We know when Judge comes back, that's an immediate difference. And we're hoping when Rodon comes back off of injury, that's a difference. Cortez to the so let's just focus on the players that are in the lineup right now.
I'd like to stay on Volpe for a second. I mean, we started talking about Volpe and we got off of him for a little bit. And by the way, people, if you're hanging with us and you're listening to all this stuff and you love it, we love you. And now's a good chance to tell everybody really quick that give us feedback, please, if you're listening and you actually are, and I know this is a weird place to put this, but it just crossed my mind. I don't want to forget at the end of the episode. So give us feedback. We're all brand new to this and we're trying to learn. But I want to, I wanted to put that out before I forget. So let's stay on Volpe for a second, because Joey, you're right. We could talk about injuries all day with the Yankees and why it's significantly impacting their ability to win. There's a lot of guys out. Guys have been out. But with Volpe specifically, Joey, you mentioned that we were all elated when he made the roster.
I think we all had a group hug when he did.
I know I did. Our group chat was hilarious with me and with Volpe. I probably would have married the man at a time. I was so happy.
Your wife would love that.
I mean, actually, my quick shout out, my uncle who lives in Indiana, big fan of all these teams. He's in our group chat. He, after Volpe made the roster, he sent me. Okay, I got a letter in the mail from a random address of an Anthony Volpe rookie card.
Let me say also, we were watching the first game of the season.
Yes,
when the mail came in, your wife brought the mail inside.
Correct.
Yes,
and it was a random address
from New Jersey.
From New Jersey.
Yep.
With Anthony Volpe's rookie card, and it had a little letter on it. I can't remember what it said, but I was genuinely, it was funny at first, and then I started getting worried. I'm like, does somebody have my address? What is this? And how would they know? What is going on? It was both funny, but then kind of nerve-wracking until I texted, family members, and this is my uncle who lives in Indiana. Rodney, what's up? Shout out. He texted me back. He's like, people cannot complete the simplest tasks. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I told this guy to say this specific thing in your letter, and he didn't do it. And
so essentially, he wanted them to say that it was being sent from Volpe.
From Anthony
hey,
Volpe.
Man, I heard you're my biggest fan.
Yeah.
Here's my card. Thanks for rooting me on, type thing. And it did not say that. Anyway, it was weird. It was strange.
Funny story. Yeah, all of this to say, you cannot give up on Anthony Volpe. He is 22 years old. He is going through it right now. The reason that the Yankees are struggling right now is not because of Volpe. Is he part of it?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Is
So
he the
give up on
reason
him.
that we're struggling?
Absolutely not.
No.
Give up
And
on him. But
Aaron-
at what point do we realize, hey, this division's slipping away? And yes, it's still relatively early in the season, but not really. It's not the opening month or 2 months anymore. At what point do we start looking at our weak spots in the team? We can't, the Yankees, if they miss playoffs this year, come on. You know what I mean?
Don't even say that.
So,
That's heresy,
no,
my
I'm
friend.
We're a
saying,
game. It's a game away, Tom.
at what
It's a
point
game
did they
away.
say,
I know,
okay,
but-
Volpe, you've got a bright future here in New York. We've got plans for you.
Mm-hmm.
You could be our next big franchise shortstop for years to come. But right now, you aren't helping us win games, and we need to. It's different. If they had a big Tampa Bay Rays size lead in the division, run out Volpe every single game. Let them struggle. Let them figure it out. But at what point did they potentially make the decision to flip-flop the two shortstops that we thought we might or might not have? Oswald Peraza is lighting up
It's a fair
AAA.
conversation. And Jacob, I actually want to hear your thoughts on something really quick.
And
but-
Jacob, tell me what would happen if Volpe was in AAA right now,
that's cool,
lighting it
Joe.
up, and Peraza was in the MLB struggling, and they weren't making this flop. There would be mayhem.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Jake? What's your Volpe
Go
take?
ahead, Jake.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I didn't know if my voice would have a frog in it after being silent for so long. That's partially on me.
Shut up.
But here's the reality.
You
No,
just have to
seriously,
talk
shut up.
louder than us.
Oswald Peraza had as they say, a coffee in the major leagues last year.
A cup of coffee.
So he had a taste of the majors. He played for a couple months,
Cream and sugar.
and he started in the AL D and CS as a starting shortstop. Oswald Peraza hit over 300 in 2 months of MLB baseball last year. Anthony Volpe,
Including playoffs?
including playoffs, but he only had
I know, but you have to
yes.
consider they're throwing out the best guys that they got.
but he
Yep.
did not have that. Yeah, including playoffs, which actually hurt his numbers.
Yeah.
But Anthony Volpe had a monster, an unbelievable spring training. But the decision to start Volpe as the starting shortstop this year was made, as we were told, as we saw over and over again, based on spring training, where he did win the job handedly. Peraza hit in the 100s in spring training, which is a bad look. But we've seen more times than we can count in baseball, the Yankees and across the league, teams who pull up a player because they crush in AAA. Just an example for the Yankees, we have Florial, who is an absolute monster, Estevan Florial in AAA. He's never hit in the majors. He's never had a great sample size. But we had a decision on opening day between a shortstop who has shown in 2 months that they can hit major league pitching and is objectively a far better defensive shortstop in Oswald Peraza, and Anthony Volpe, who had an incredible spring training, absolutely has clear holes in his defensive game at shortstop, his arm being one of them, his range one way versus the other is far better. He was never said to be the shortstop of the future, and now he is the starting shortstop. He's played almost every game for a team that's supposed to win the World Series or supposed to contend, and there is not only a hole, but a hole that is exploitable and has cost, and you're not blaming 9 innings of not scoring on one at-bat, but for 2 of the 3 Red Sox games in this past series, Volpe was the final out, and it's obviously that's 2 at-bats. It's not the conversation breaker, but you do point to those and say, this is a hole that we have seen for 2.5 months, and now it comes up in big spots. They should have won the game in the 9 innings that they had to win the game,
Very
but
much so.
they come up in a big spot, and it's a real hole.
So okay, let's we could talk about this and we will talk about this more. But let's just say, if you are Cashman or if you're Boone and you get to make this decision, are you making the flop? Or if yes or no, do you think right now, or if it continues for another series the way it's going, do you say, hey, Volpe, instead of struggling, let's go build some confidence potentially in AAA. Peraza, you're raking. Let's reward you for working your butt off in AAA and being literally the best hitter the past month in all of the AAA league. Do you make that flop? because the Yankees, this division could very well, with the Orioles and the Blue Jays, who are great teams, and the Rays' incredible lead, this division could get away from them if they keep dropping series.
Well,
so
the
do you
division-
make this move, Tom? Do you flop them?
The division is dangerous as it is right now. Like the logical answer, like if you're playing a video game and you look and you're like, oh, this guy's got these stats and this guy's got this
100%.
stats, so I'm going to flip it. The New York Yankees don't operate like that. I don't think they do. Aaron Boone, anybody who saw the video of them welcoming Volpe and telling him that he made the team, they said, we think that you should do your developing at the major league level.
And that's
is
the heart
what
of it.
he's doing.
That's the heart of it, is that they're letting him develop.
Correct.
And that's a decision that is questionable.
Look, I'm in full agreement with you guys about the fact that this is supposed to be a World Series championship team. And the fact that, there's a hole in their lineup that's not providing anything right now. We're not a rebuilding team. We're a team that needs to win now, and we don't, like Joey, like you mentioned, we don't have that luxury of a big lead in the division like the Yankees did early last year to let Volpe go out there. I mean, that would have been the time to do it with guys like, not Volpe last year, but Peraza and whatnot.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, Anthony Volpe is not the reason the Yankees are losing games. The reasons the Yankees are losing games right now is because the production from players, aside from injuries, production from players like DJ LeMahieu, Josh Donaldson, Giancarlo Stanton. Right now, I mean, I love Stanton. I'm not a Stanton hater, and I'll talk plenty on Stanton.
We know it takes him a while to get going off of injury.
But especially guys like LeMahieu and Donaldson, who are commanding money, they're veterans, and they're not producing.
And
is
recently,
a real concern.
Rizzo, who was
Rizzo's
our best
been
hitter.
cold. You know what? Baseball is
but
ups and downs.
Like you
of
said,
course.
Tom, injury aside, the big players have to play. They have to play.
Look, Willie Calhoun. I love our short
Thick
king Willie.
Yep, thick king.
But he's hitting leadoff for the New York Yankees. Billy McKinney is in the lineup on a regular basis. And I know injuries have a lot to do with that. I understand that. Bader and Judge are out, so our outfielders thin right now. Stanton's playing every other day. My dad has a field day with Stan about not playing. He thinks he's absolutely a wimp for not playing every other day. But that's who Stanton is right now, and he's not going to play the field for a while. So I understand that that's a portion of it, but the fact of the matter is that DJ LeMahieu is supposed to be our leadoff hitter. They envision Josh Donaldson producing more than he does at a 190 clip, having 6 hits this year and 5 of them being home runs. I mean, and I know he was injured for a little bit too, but that's my problem. That the roster construction right now for the Yankees was not done enough, and this is something that would launch us into another hour that we don't have, and we're actually going to be wrapping things up here pretty soon. But my last take on the Volpe situation specifically is, is that he's developing at the major league level, and the Yankees need to get guys back, and they need to maybe deepen the roster a little bit, and then that 9-hole that Volpe might be able to get on every now and then and swipe a bag and continue to develop. That's okay. That's doable. But I completely understand the argument with Peraza raking in AAA right now. So
here is. We're talking about the offense.
Yeah.
There's a thing as the season goes, if you have a certain number of plate appearances, you become qualified to fall into certain stat categories. So that in baseball, it's as the season goes on, the more plate appearances you have, the more likely you are to qualify into stats. So for example, if someone comes up and they hit a home run in their first major league at bat, they're not going to be the number one slugging leader in MLB because they have 100% of the time they have a home run. So you have to have a certain amount of plate appearances. So the Yankees currently have 8 qualified players in the offensive categories. 8 players have had enough at-bats to qualify for the categories, which is pretty average. A lot of players have between like 7 and 10 or 12. I'm going to talk about a stat called OPS+, on-base percentage plus slugging, and then the plus at the end stands for, it means how you compare to the rest of the league. So if you are 100, it means that you are average, that's league average, at getting on base and getting extra base hits, doubles, triples, home runs. If you're 100, it means you're completely average. The Yankees have 8 qualified players. They have, going from bottom to top, quickly, Oswald Cabrera, Anthony Volpe, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, DJ LeMahieu, all qualify, and I have less than league average OPS plus.
Woof.
You have to remember
The-
the Oakland Athletics are
The
Their team.
they're
first
real.
the first
They're kind of real.
player on the Yankees that qualifies and is above league average is Willie Calhoun at 105, and that can drop after today's game if he were. I don't know his box score
I think
today.
he went over
Yeah,
today.
But
He
if he
went
goes 0
over
for,
3
0
or
for today, then that 105
The
will
game
likely
ended
go.
extra innings, but
It did. It will likely go to 102, 103, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So after Calhoun, you have Gleyber Torres, 112, Anthony Rizzo, 120. So you have 3 players who are just slightly above league average in OPS plus. This is on base and extra base hits. Aaron Judge is at 194, which is
that good?
unbelievable.
I mean, he has a key.
So
He has a key to the city, probably.
Aaron Judge is as good at offense as 2 average players.
That's
It's
crazy.
truly unbelievable. But the real conversation,
Yeah.
all that to say,
Yeah.
this offense is not winning the World Series. They
No.
have 4 above
even close.
average players. Not 8 above average players, not even 6 that are like around. They have 1 on the line, 3 slightly above. They have 4 above average hitters. It is not the offense that wins a World Series.
We saw one player. We saw Judge for a literal month drag the Yankees through victories. Literally.
Literally
100% carried the team's offense.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I did see them recently. The numbers over the last 2 years with Judge in the lineup versus not, and it's bad. It's
Tell me
shocking.
the last team that won the World Series
That
with
didn't-
one guy.
Yeah, that didn't have. Look at
Where
yeah.
their 7-hitter
So-
wasn't pitching in. So
all this is to
very
say,
true.
and we can-
Our offense is
Yeah.
struggling mightily.
That was the main point. Like,
Yep.
obviously, Volpe here kind of led into the offense in general. Obviously, we have a lot of other topics that we could talk about with the Yankees. I mean, we wanted to get a little bit more into recap of the Red Sox series, which I don't think we're going to have a ton of time for right now.
No, we don't.
Just to let everybody know, we want to keep these episodes around like the, I'd say 45 at the minute at the lowest to the hour 15ish at the most, which is about what we're approaching right now. So we kind of want to try to wrap it just to let everybody know. But I guess really quick, if we have one quick takeaway from this series with the Red Sox, I know we all watched it at varying degrees. One quick takeaway from each for the series, and then I'll let Jacob wrap it up with maybe a little fun time, a little gamey game.
Got a fun game.
Ooh, and then we'll probably call it there. So
My-
one takeaway from the series, Joey.
My one takeaway, it's the big one. Yankees are not a fantastic team right now. It's scary.
Tough.
That's my big takeaway. And obviously injuries play a huge part of it, but like you said, the big players aren't playing.
Yep.
The Yankees offense is frightening. So something needs to change, and that change could be players stepping up or playing to the quality that they know that they can, or the Yankees are paying them to or expecting them to. But as of right now, I'm a little scared. This division's very good.
Very good.
Very good, and it's not going anywhere. So the Yanks need to step up. So dropping 2 series to each of the Sox teams in the league, a little bit scary. So I'm hoping their next couple series they can get a couple wins.
Jacob,
Really do.
your takeaway from the Boston series.
My takeaway would be that the Yankees come off on TV as a team that expects to win when Aaron Judge is in the lineup and expects to survive when he's not. And that is exactly what the stats say they have done since 2017 when he became a superstar, is they survive without him and they are great with him. The playoffs, a different story. In the regular season, that's what it looks like. They go out and at-bats are ugly. At-bats are 3-4 pitches instead of 5-6 pitches per at-bat. They go out to the plate and they look like they expect to score 2 runs and hope that they can let up 1, which is almost what they've been doing since Judge has been out and when he was out the first time this year, is that they score a little bit, hope that's enough. It doesn't ever feel like they have a knife to the throat and say, we are going to absolutely take control of this game
no
unless
killer
they have
instinct.
Aaron Judge in the lineup. And that's
I mean, he makes a big difference.
good
He's
point.
the best offensive player in the league. He makes a difference, but they have to do more than survive without him.
Yeah,
It's a great point, Jake.
my one takeaway is that it's obvious that somebody got into the Yankees clubhouse before these last 2 series and went in every guy's locker and took out their socks and slipped a little like scorpion in there and all the players got in, they either looked at their socks. If you're like a guy like, do you think like Torres like definitely looks at inside of his socks?
When's the
before
last time you looked in your sock before you put it
That's
on?
what I'm saying. 99% of these guys probably just put their socks on. There was a scorpion there. It bit them. And Torres looked, though, because that's why he hit that home run, because he had a decent series. And
What do you
now,
think was in these people's socks?
scorpions. And now we have a phobia of socks, and that's why we lost.
That's a great
so
point,
bad
Tom.
to the socks. But
That is what happened.
that's my takeaway from the series.
So,
The-
Yankees, a little bit of a rough patch, couple of rough series.
And we'll
We're
talk about
hoping
them
they
more.
can get into the
Yeah.
win column here soon. And, we've touched on all three teams. Definitely some more more input on each three teams, different stages of their seasons. But, I think that we touched on some big things we can dive in and unpack a little bit more in our next episode. But, Jake, I think to send us away, you got something fun for us?
Yeah, go
I do
Jake.
have something fun. It's
I like fun.
it's kind of juxtapositional, one of my favorite
I
words.
like
Spell it.
that word.
Spell it.
Juxtapositional.
I actually,
And
I was talking
I don't
about,
have time to spell it.
I was just talking about this word with somebody recently. I don't think it was one of you guys. And
You don't talk to anyone else, so it's probably one of us.
That's just so sad.
Sorry.
And not
From the
true.
guy who in
little
episode 0
Yeah.
was talking about telling his cat
telling
things.
his cat.
Just
things.
because I talk
All
to my
right.
cat doesn't mean I don't
We're
talk
at
to
a
other
buck
people.
15.
Jacob,
here,
what do
and
you got
it's
for us,
late,
brother?
So let's
right.
finish this up.
I'm turning my camera so that you don't look at my screen.
Joey is a notorious cheater.
He is. He loves it.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Actually,
So-
cheaters always win. I'm just gonna
If you
put
do
that
it well
out there.
enough, they do. Jacob, what do you got for us?
So here's my question for you. Which Buffalo Bills player has hit the furthest home run?
Is that
I
is that
had-
like
Like
ever?
ever? The tone of your voice made us think like there was
All
more.
right, all right.
in
There
an
wasn't.
MLB game, at Little League,
no. In
batting practice.
No.
Just ever.
Documented furthest home run.
Okay,
Uh,
I have an answer.
Josh Allen. Why not?
Tommy?
JP Lossman.
Josh Allen
Yeah, I knew it was
hit
Allen.
a home run about 2 or 3 weeks ago in the Toronto Blue Jays
Yeah.
park.
Trivia is kind of my thing. I
That
killed
went-
it.
I knew it
last
was
episode,
Allen,
too.
so
Sure
I
did.
didn't
Do
want
we
to say
have a
Allen.
guess on how far his home run went?
Oh, where did he hit?
He was
Toronto.
In
he was
Toronto?
in Toronto.
325.
What do you think he's
I don't
using one
think the
hand?
dimensions are even.
That's
I'm gonna
true,
say
that's a-
384.
That's a Yankee Stadium.
384.
That's
Tommy?
a- 345.
You guys are so mean to Josh Allen.
No way.
400?
400?
4 projected. Statcast wasn't
my
on.
God.
Similar
Put
home runs.
him in the Yankees
You haven't
lineup.
even given me a chance. 422 projected.
Bomb.
That is a
Put
bomb.
him
It
in the
is.
Yankees lineup.
Don't
That's
think
a
you could
bomb.
do it in a game.
Cannot be worse than Josh Donaldson.
Well, Donaldson has been
So
fair.
clearly, if the Yankees continue to struggle, Josh Allen can get the call. So I think that it was fun. Touched on all three teams here today. Jake,
Russell
thanks for
Wilson.
the good trivia.
Russell Wilson was a Yankee.
And so I think that was a great episode. Got a lot to talk about in the future.
Yeah.
It was fun. And so I really think we had a good time here tonight, guys. And Tommy, you got something to close us with.
Yep. Jacob, was that it for fun times?
we've got more. We've got a lot. In the
Plenty of
that's
fun
it.
times ahead. Plenty of
Well,
fun
I just
times
like
ahead.
Fun times. Okay, yeah. This is we'll end the show. Say that 5 times fast. And just a reminder to everybody out there, please go and find us on social media. All the big ones, all the hits, all the big ones. Jacob,
All the big ones.
all the good ones.
Facebook,
Facebook,
Instagram,
Insta,
Twitter,
Twitter,
YouTube.
Tweeter,
TikTok's coming up.
TikTok coming up, and give us a follow. Seriously, it would mean a lot. And just we're gonna be posting news and other stuff on those pages along with the episodes here, and we'll let everybody know when those are coming out. And just to remind everybody, episodes we're gonna be trying to record them twice a week, and they're gonna be launched on Mondays and Thursdays. That's the plan for now. So find us on socials, give us a follow, give us a like.
If you want to watch us make faces at each other and banter, you can go to YouTube and watch
Yes.
our podcast as well.
You can
Otherwise-
see the air quotes instead of hear the air quotes.
Yeah. Otherwise, as of this morning, actually, we are now live on all major platforms as well. So
You're welcome.
Your Apple Music, your Amazon,
Spotify.
yeah, Stitcher, the whole nine.
And like
yards.
Tom said
and
earlier in the
media
episode,
one,
in a very
rating group.
very odd spot. We're brand new to this. We've never done this before. We want this to, obviously we're here having fun, talking about things we talk about all the time, but definitely open. We want to hear constructive criticism, comments.
please.
If you think Jacob needs a haircut, let us know.
Tommy sucks. Joey
sure,
sucks.
Fair enough. But
Joey sucks at cooking.
we're really looking forward to keeping this thing going. Thank you again to Media One, and just having a professional recording studio. Pretty
Yeah.
great here for the audio.
Yep.
So a lot of shout outs there. But like Tom said, follow us on the socials if you
Yeah.
want to watch us. Check us out on YouTube, and we look forward to talking twice a week. And hope you guys enjoy listening.
Go Yanks, boys.
Go Yanks. Go
Let's
Sabres.
Go Buffalo.
Go Bills.
All right. Thanks, everybody.